I didn't have anything growing up. I was an abused child. I was a drug addict, alcoholic. I've been in prison. I've been homeless.
My main area of practice is criminal defense. And I see the same individuals over and over and over and over.
There was this young kid that came in, and I'd seen him twice within a few months.
There are no real, thorough resources once people are released from jail.
There were a lot of roadblocks out of prison. There was no help. I cried for help. Walking into places and asking people, please help me, put me somewhere. There's nothing we can do for you.
He kept talking about how terrified he was to get out. And I'm like, well, so when you get out, just stop. And he's like, so I just turned 18. I turned 18 and went to jail, and then got out of jail and went right back into jail. He said, but when I got out, I went and got in the truck, in the car, with my mom, and my mom threw a loaded rig of heroin in my lap and said, I know you've been missing this. There has to be another alternative. There has to be a landing pad for those individuals who said, I'm done.
My name is Brian Miller. I am the sheriff of Mecosta County. My grandfather was a detective sergeant down at the Jackson Police Department, and I remember at a young age going over to Grandma and Grandpa's and sitting in Grandpa's Lazy Boy and having a scanner radio there and hearing all the radio traffic back and forth and thinking, boy, that's something I'd really like to do. Part of the reason I got into law enforcement also was I wanted to raise my kids, my family, in a community that was a safe one and one that people felt secure in. I've always been a big believer in people mature at different rates. I was one that matured later in life. You just can't continue to make mistakes over and over again because then it's a problem. So I've always had that, but being in law enforcement, you also become very jaded too. You know, you tend to see the bad things over and over again.
There is not one community that doesn't have hurting people, that doesn't have people that struggle with addiction, that doesn't have a county jail. Everybody's like, oh, Big Rapids, so cute, beautiful little city. You know, you drive in and you drive right into Fair State University. That's awesome. Well, then I started studying the city. I pulled the demographics. And then I started driving through all the neighborhoods. And I'm like, wow, there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of hurt. There's a lot of addiction right here. So people are just putting their blinders on. Sometimes I just think they don't really want to see what's happening around them.
My name is Erin Carrier. I'm an attorney. I practice mainly criminal defense, and I work at Erin Carrier Law. So the resources necessary for people to be rehabilitated are continual support and connection. We know that a huge piece of addiction is lack of connection. We know that. And what are we doing now to facilitate that connection? We have these cookie cutter kind of responses. You should go to AA, you should go to 1016, which are good programs. I'm not saying that they're not good programs, but there's more to it than that. And it needs to be a full wraparound program, right? It needs to encompass every piece of their life, removing them from unhealthy situations, giving them a safe place to go, giving them a place where they are consistently and continuously supported by someone who has their best interest at heart and who recognizes and understands the dynamics of addiction and mental illness.
There are resources out there, but they're not designed to help people transition into the community. They're designed to help people stay in the community. Even CMH is designed that way, that when CMH was established to help people with mental disabilities exist in the community, the goal is for them to stay out of mental hospitals, that they exist in the community with support from CMH. And so a lot of programs run like that where people that are struggling can be held up, but people that are just stepping out into nothing, there's not a whole lot of starting point that they really have to do it all on their own. And it's hard to maintain that energy when you're not coming home to a warm bed and a supportive family, that it just takes one moment of doubt, to return to those old habits. And I've talked to a lot of people that their entire plan that they've spent months putting into place falls apart within an hour of them getting out, where they just bump into someone they knew from the past who says, "Oh, I can give you a ride."
You need support, whether it's family, mentors, life coaches. Everybody needs somebody. And the problem you have is if you don't have those people, you have a tendency to fall right back in to whatever lifestyle you had that led you to that in the first place.
When somebody comes into the jail, it's like taking an exit off the highway, and they might stay there for a while and look at the map and come up with a new plan. But when they get out of the jail, they get right back on that same highway, go in the same direction. We can make that next section of the highway as smooth as possible, but ultimately the person needs to go a completely different direction with their life than what they were doing before they came in.
In this work, I've heard many, many people tell their stories and journeys of recovery. Some of them were introduced to substances at the age of 7 or 8, shot up with heroin because their parents didn't want to use alone, so they shot their child up. Some of them who were abused in the home and started using substances, stealing from their parents' substances, or using alcohol to numb themselves. When they come out of a jail or a 30-day recovery program, they're asked to start their life all over again. How many of us could just, in the blink of an eye, start all over again? We're asking people to change their entire life. You need a Jonah Foundation to help you do that.
We're not into restoration. Oh my goodness, please, let's not restore that life. Let's transform. Behold, I am doing a new thing, right? And so we want to talk about restoration and all of those things. And to be honest, I'm just not sure that that's biblical. I think what's biblical is transformation. You should look totally different when you come out than when you came in. Just like when you went into jail, you were one way, and then you heard the good news, you received hope. Someone came to you and without judgment expressed to you the truth that the word shows, and something supernatural happens inside of you, and you are given the ability to believe in it. And now comes the hard part, living it. And that's the gap that Jonah stands in.
When they come out of jail, they have to come into a safe environment where they can be contained, not as contained as a county jail, but they can work in increments at building a different community on the outside. And in the house is a model of what that community is going to look like. So I have to be in a house with Jonah's model is 6 guys to know what agape love looks like, right? Because the guy who says, it's only 9 o'clock, why are you going home, right? You afraid to have another beer with me? That is not what love looks like. What are you still doing at my house? It's 9 o'clock. Aren't you married? Don't you have a wife and kids? Are you insane? That's what love looks like. And they have to taste it, they have to sense it, and they have to recognize what the true thing looks like in order to build that community to graduate into. And that is one of the core values of Jonah Foundation.
Providing an already set up means of community and connection with individuals who are men of integrity, I think is paramount to this. The other piece is, by offering job services, not just job services in finding them a job, but career services, right? Helping them move forward into something that they can be proud of. I absolutely feel that Jonah's reentry home is necessary for our community.
When action is being taken and we can start speaking the community's language, and what I mean by that, open this house and see the success rate. Unless we have that Jonah house, we can't prove it to our community. God has brought the right people. Let us do the work.
This is a program that we need. Jonah Foundation is a program that this community needs, that every community needs.
Jonah Foundation and what they're trying to do, I think, is an important part of keeping our community the one that I am proud to live within.
We have at our fingertips an opportunity to support something that is going to make a huge positive impact. I think the answer is clear, that we need to support programs like Jonah Foundation.
He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight to the blind, to release the oppressed.